I'd always been a big reader, but I started to dive into books on meditation. Philosophy was my main interest, but also Western philosophers, Immanuel Kant, a lot of ethical philosophy, Plato, existentialists, perennial philosophy. But the practice of meditation for me really felt like was a big change in my worldview and how I viewed myself. And that took me to Colorado. Went to school, finished school in University of Colorado at Boulder, but really pursued Boulder because I felt like a lot of these other interests in philosophy and meditation and that type of culture were there. I later went into neuroscience for a year just as a professional research assistant. I decided on clinical psychology. I thought that was going to be the best blend of philosophy and also these applications of meditation for people's lives, and just overall, just I thought that would be a good match for me. Immediately I got into the program. I felt like our culture didn't express for me really kind of the challenges that I really wanted to put myself through and face. So I really wanted to take some time off. So I did, went to Kenya about 10 years ago. And for the last decade, I've been going back and forth working with a community there called Kibera. It's the largest slum in Africa. It's home to about 1 million people in 1 square mile. And upon my first trip, was just really impacted actually by the people. So during my time in Kenya, I met a very courageous group of volunteer teachers. They were all about my age, in their early 20s at the time, and they were working for nothing for a group of about 90 children, half of which didn't have parents. Most of them didn't have shoes, and they were working by the largest waste dump in the area, where you could find dead animals, namely stray dogs, waste from the sewage, and to have children walking around it playing and trying to study there. And that's your first experience, your first real dose. But I was, again, inspired by these teachers and inspired by the locals, despite having nothing, doing everything they could in a way to help each other. So I realized that, most of the things that I saw there, it was simply just a matter of need. But for me, I always knew that there was going to be a resource issue and or governmental or corruption and other things at part that were very, very important. And it was all of that. And around that same time, I was reading a lot of systems theory and philosophy of holistic philosophy. These things sort of helped me piece together all the different confluence of aspects that I could see. Instead of just one big complexity, it helped to order some of that. I could start to see and understand a bit more. And the more I went back, the more I experienced, the more I could see that a simple holistic take on just the hierarchy of human needs, we all have the same human needs. And we all live in different cultures and in different environments, but those needs remain the same. And what happens if you, just like watering a plant and treating the soil, what happens when it's organic and there's precipitation like this and the soil is healthy, you get this. It's the same, I feel like, human beings, because we are an extension of that. So we started to do some work with a foundation I founded called Global One Foundation. And since that time, we've built schools, and we have about 600 children. We use clean energy, solar powered. We feed them 2 meals a day. We get all of our rice local, and beans and local vegetables. And we're doing the best we can with these kids, and they're really thriving. What's been one of the most inspiring things to see is how kids have transformed from past traumatic life, seeing their parents murdered by machetes or just families displaced. When we started to implement meditation as a twice daily practice in school, we could really see how their nervous systems were changing. Joy was coming back up to kids who almost had kind of blank stares. They started to become more interactive with their peers, and our teachers also do it. And so there's kind of this cohesiveness that we have as a team. Philosophy there is supposed to be about oneness and working together, and just all, basic transcultural values of ethical principles. But to see how everybody is working together, and that over time, if you make it a consistent practice, there really are these group dynamics and effects on previous trauma or destabilized psyches, you might say. I mean, there's so much stimulation in those types of environments. You really have to experience it firsthand and live there and stay there to see how it impacts you weeks at a time. And when I'm there, I'm there months of a time. And although I don't live there full time, I even notice the effects. So I've noticed how much meditation has helped me. So I say all that to say the holistic model and thinking and understanding our rightful place in the world is getting our understanding of who we are correctly. And it is my belief and that we are extensions of nature and that we are a product of the interaction of nature's holistic. When we are in balance, we are in balance with what we came from, and that when we do that together, we do pretty amazing things. And to see friends of mine who've transformed their business, like Arash Galazadeh, to help make that a vehicle for this foundation and others, and seeing my friends in Kenya, like James Mayabo, a 19-year-old kid with a love for computers with no home, later has become our director of programs there, and he's now a wonderful filmmaker in his own right once he got the resources to use his passion, and now he's a storyteller in Kibera. Or Vincent Oching was one of the first volunteer teachers that I met, is now the headmaster of our school, along with Betty Mwangi, who's our head teacher. To see how impacted they are by the global partner community that we have with Child Partners, getting people across the world involved in those stories, the way that holistically spreads outward. This is one example of one small organization applying a model that we didn't invent. Nature invented it, and it affects our thinking. It's systems thinking because it's coming from a whole place. And so I just offer this brief experience today to, I hope, inspire wholeness in you, and then expansion outward where you feel like you can make a difference, and also have a difference made to you through whatever communities or people, environment that you're working in. Thank you.